Good morning. Our welcome comes from number 434 in our hymnal. This is, "May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other." Our speaker this morning, our guest speaker, is Andy Reese. Anybody who's been here for any amount of time at all knows Andy. He's one of our core members. He's been with us forever. He was a professor of immunology at Augusta University. And he's one of the faces, he and Alice are one of the faces that I always look for when I show up on Sunday morning. They're a part of our community. And now a board member, I hope, will be giving our announcements.
Good morning. I'm Alan George, and I'm president of the Board of Trustees. Do we have any visitors here today? We have two visitors. Could you rise and tell us your name so we can greet you?
I'm Lynn Badger.
Welcome, Lynn.
Welcome. Amanda.
Hi, Amanda. Welcome. Oh, we have one over here, too. Paul, how are you? Glad to have you. And I see one more. Yes. Say again? Vicky, welcome. Wow, that's great. So during the service, if you look in the seat pocket in front of you, you should see a blue card that looks something like this. If you could fill this out and leave it at the front desk before you leave, this will help us keep in touch with you and help you be more connected with us, okay? So we look forward to your participation and we welcome you all. Even though we needed to return to masking and social distancing because of the Delta variant of COVID, we can still gather together and worship together. If you're able to join via Zoom, that is preferred while we're still dealing with the higher numbers, but we hope that as the numbers come down, we can have more people joining here in person. Obviously, you are here in person, and we're glad to have you. No one will be turned away, no matter which way you choose to join the service. Our announcements begin with the fact that the church office will be closed this week, but will reopen September 27th. So if you have any business with Laura, it needs to hold until the 27th. The parents group will meet after the service today at 12:15 in the playground. So it will be socially distanced and very well ventilated, obviously. We're still seeking volunteers who can help with religious education classes on Sunday mornings. Please talk with Reverend Kim Miner, who is the head of our family ministry program, and she will be glad to receive your help. The Sunday Vespers usually occurs on the fourth Sunday of the month, but this month it will happen tonight at 7 p.m. Contact Jezebel Anat for more information, or if you need the Zoom link. The next gathering of the Portable Book Club is happening a week early as well. Please join them on Zoom this Wednesday at 7 p.m. They'll be discussing The Sweetness of Water by Nathan Harris, and Moni Morgan will lead the discussion on Zoom. Contact Liz Goodson, who is right here, for more information so that you can join in. Reverend Nick will begin having weekly open office hours from 4 to 5:30 on Wednesdays and Fridays. You can arrange ahead of time to meet with him or just show up. And Zoom is also an option. Ellen, how do we reach him? You contact him through the minister at uuaugustin.org. That's probably the best way. Okay, after the service today, AU Health Stroke Program Manager, Amanda Howard, who is one of our visitors, will be giving a brief stroke awareness presentation and answering questions. Stop by her display table in the hallway for more information. Reverend Nick also wants us to remind you that the Blessing of the Animals service will happen on October the 3rd, so please plan ahead for that. And as always, remember to look at the weekly announcements and the UUCA public calendar online for details and contact information for upcoming events. Thank you very much.
And there will be a discussion after the service at 12:30.
Thank you. Also, there will be a discussion with Andy after the service at 12:30 here in the sanctuary. Thank you.
Sliding this morning. Differences in our cultural and religious backgrounds divide us and make us fearful of each other. I need to get this up where it works. Differences in our cultural and religious backgrounds divide us and make us fearful of each other. They're not like us, so we can't be sure we understand their motivations and intentions. But if we're open to each other, we can gain a wider perspective that reveals new possibilities, new ways of caring and community. Let the light of the chalice banish the dark shadows of fear so we can work together to build a community in which everyone can thrive. Okay. And the opening hymn this morning is a combination of some verses that are in the same tune. So.
We're fortunate to have Jerry Goldman singing this morning. If we mic, is the mic working? All right. Let's see if I can get this right. Let those who live in every land declare that fear and war are done, joined by the labor of their hands in love and understanding one. Since what we choose is what we are, and what we love we yet shall be, the goal may ever shine afar. The will to win it moves us free. Rejoice in love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be.
Now's the time for young ones would like to come down in front. And Chris has got something special for you. Chris.
Deal. If you guys will sit over here with me, I'll tell you a really good story. These people can stay if they want, I don't care. But I'm talking to you. All right. Now, I'm going to have to wear a mask for safety, because you know how it is. See, I'm going to tell you a ghost story. And I got to wear this for safety, because if you go tell your parents and they get mad at me, this way they can't find me. and beat me up. So hang on. So I got my disguise. This ain't gonna work. Hang on. All right, now you don't. Now nobody can see me. So now, this ain't a ghost story like anyone you ever heard before. You guys like ghost stories? You know, Fox likes it. You like ghost stories? Okay, now, this is a ghost story from Japan. They got the best ghost stories. You never heard a ghost story from Japan before. No. Now yeah, you did? Oh, you did? Oh, man, I hope you didn't hear this one. Okay, good. All right. So, this happened to a real guy. This was a real guy. Now, the thing is, this happened 1,000 years ago, so nobody really knows if this happened or not. And it's got a happy ending. I mean, it works out. They worked all this out a long time ago. So, but this was a real guy, and you can look him up. I'll tell you about him. Now, this is what happened. Once upon a time, and this was so long ago, nobody even knows what village this happened in, see? But there was this rice farmer. He was a rice farmer, and he had a lot of kids. And this happened so long ago, nobody even knows who the rice farmer guy was, all right? But he had 2 girls and 2 boys. And the 2 girls, this happened so long ago, they don't even know who the 2 girls were. Now, the older boy, he was a strong, healthy boy. So he helped his dad in the rice field to grow rice. So, you know, he was the family boy, right? And this was so long ago, nobody even knows what his name was either. They forgot all these guys except one guy. The younger boy, now he'd be about your age, Fox. He'd be about your age. And now he was a little guy. He was kind of a skinny little kid because he wasn't real healthy when he grew up, and he couldn't work too hard, so he couldn't help his dad. And so now the thing is, if you're a rice farmer, you got a barn, you got to put your rice in, right? And if you got a lot of rice, then you got a lot of mice. You know, mice got to eat too, and they eat rice, right? So if you got a barn full of rice, then you got a lot of cats. You got a lot of cats because the cats got to go after the mice and protect everything so it doesn't get ate up and they can sell it. Now, Seshu is the name of the little boy about your age, maybe your age. And Seshu, who was a real guy, he used to hang around with the cats. They were the only real friends he had. He wasn't much good for anything, but he loved the cats, and he knew the cats really well, and he played with the cats. Now, one year, there was a famine. You guys know what a famine is? You don't know, right? You know what a famine is? Okay. A famine is when something happens. Usually it's a war or something, but something happens and there's no food. There's no food, and you ain't going to get any food because there isn't any food for anybody. And everybody's hungry. That's a famine, all right? So there was a famine one year, and then the year after that, there was another famine. And the father couldn't grow any rice because there was a monster. See, now it gets good. There was a monster, and he was tearing up all the rice. 2 years, tore up all the rice. There's no food to eat. And because there wasn't any rice to sell, Seshu's family was getting real poor and hungry. And then one day, his mom and dad came to him, and he said, Seshu, we got to let you go, buddy, because you're not good for anything, and we just can't feed everybody. So they took him down to the village, and they had a priest. They had a Buddhist temple there, and they gave him to the priest. And they said, can you raise our boy? Make him a priest, too. And the priest said, hey, give him a try. Now, so the priest told Seshu, he said, I am going to make 1,000 copies of the Lotus Sutra. It's kind of like a Bible verse for Buddhist people, right? I'm going to make 1,000 copies, and that'll be a magic charm to kill the monster. Now, I got about 500 done. I want you to do the other 500. Here's an ink brush. They write with brushes. And an ink stone. And here's how you do it. And he showed him how to do it, how to write the Lotus Sutra. Now, he said, I'm going to go get some magic stuff. And I want you to finish the next 500 pages of the Lotus Sutra. And then I, the priest, the wise priest, I'm going to kill the monster with these. Now you do that. The priest went away. So Seshu, he started writing out the Lotus Sutra, right? And after about 100 of them, he was getting kind of tired. So he kept writing, but he never had an ink brush before. And he started playing with the brush. He started doing stuff with the brush. But he kept working. And the priest came back, and it was done. He said, Seshu, you did it. You finished him. Let me see. And he took one of the pieces of papers. What do you think he said? He said, Seshu, what is this? What is this? He said, it's a cat. He said, you did it wrong. No, he was mad. He said, what is this? You drew cats? All these pages got cats on them. Who told you to draw cats? Did I tell you to draw cats? No. You've defiled the Lotus Sutra. You may have brought bad luck on us. Oh, he was so mad. He took all of Seshu's writing and he threw them all in the fire and he burned them up. He said, I can't keep you. You're no good for anything. You got to go tomorrow. I don't care where you go, but you got to go somewhere. Now, I can tell what you guys are thinking right now. I know what you guys are thinking. See, right now you're thinking, this is a stupid story. This is a dumb story. Man, you said this was going to be, this story, ain't nothing going on in this story.
I don't think that.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad one person, do you think that? Yeah, see, I'm losing some. Okay, I'm losing Fox here. Okay, hang on, Fox. Something's going to happen. I'm getting to the scary part now. All right? Anybody don't want to be scared, you better cover up your ears because it's going to happen now. Black tank?
Yeah.
So you're scared of black widows and bees. That's a good idea, actually. And you're scared of a tank?
No.
Oh, well, good. Well, there's no tanks. Oh. But you're not scared of that, are you? No. Okay, good. Okay, there's no tanks in it anyway. So, now, I forgot to tell you something. Now, when Seshu's mom and dad came and brought him to the temple, his mom said to Seshu, when it gets dark at night, stay away from the large places. Stay in the small places. And she didn't say why. It didn't make any sense. So Seshu said, okay, I guess I'll go to bed because he's going to throw me out in the morning. So he found a box with all kinds of magic stuff on the box. And he got in the box and he closed the lid and he felt so bad. And he went to sleep right away and didn't get up until the very next morning. And he looked out of the box and, oh, man, that place, it was tore up. It was ate up. It was messed up. It was destroyed. And right in the middle of the floor, there was the priest, and he was all tore up, and his clothes were all tore up, and he was scratched up and bit up, and he was laying on the floors all ate up, and Seshu went up to him. No, he wasn't dead. Nobody dies. Nobody dies in this story. And so he went up to him and he said, are you okay, sir? You did this. You're stupid cats. You brought evil on this temple. You got to go. I don't care if you go home or where you go, but you got to go. Now, kid. Now you're awake. Seshu went out into the street, and he ran down the street. He felt so bad. He grabbed an inkstone and a brush before he left, and he took his stuff, and he ran down the street to the next village. There's nobody in the village. It was all gone. The monster had scared them all away. Now, he was in the village, and he heard something. He heard something. So he went over to see what it was. He was the only guy in the village. It was a blacksmith. Now, a blacksmith is a guy who makes stuff out of metal. They do that with machines now, but they did blacksmiths back then. He was making something. He had a bar of metal. And he went up to him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, I am making a magic ninja samurai sword. And I'm going to kill the monster with this sword. And he said, "Can I help?" And he said, "Well, try lift this hammer." Seshu couldn't lift the hammer. So he said, "Tell you what you can do. You keep the fire hot. You blow that bellows and keep the fire going." So Seshu started blowing the bellows to keep the fire going. It's okay, you can do that. And he said, "I'm going to get some cold water in these 2 buckets, and I'll be right back." Seshu started looking at the fire, and he got kind of bored. He saw a piece of burnt wood on the floor. He picked it up, and he went, "Shh," and it looked like a cat. Looked like a cat's tail. Oh. And he forgot all about the fire, and he started drawing cats all over the walls. And the blacksmith came back and said, "What is that? What happened to the fire? Man, you let the fire go out. You're no good at this either, are you? All right, here, take this bucket of water, wash off the walls, and we'll get something to eat. We'll figure out what to do with you in the morning." So Seshu washed off the walls. The blacksmith was a nice guy. Seshu found a big iron pot, and he climbed in and he closed the lid. Now he woke up at night, and his eyes were burning, and the air was all full of smoke. He got out of the pot, and the blacksmith shop was on fire. It was burning down. He went out into the street, and the blacksmith, his clothes were all burned off, and he was all scratched up, and he looked at Seshu, and he said, "The monster, it was here, and it was looking for you." And the blacksmith wandered off, and Seshu thought to himself, "I'm no good. I'm stupid. Everything I do is wrong. Nobody wants me, and everything I do is wrong. What am I going to do? My family don't want me. These guys don't want me. I'm no good at anything." So he went to the last village. In the last village, it was all empty. There's nobody there. There was a big house, and he went in the big house, and it was all covered with dust. And he said, "Ha, now I can do whatever I want." And he drew pictures of cats all over the walls of the big house, all evening. Big cats, little cats, cats crouching, cats doing everything that a cat can do. Covered all the walls with cats. And then when he was done, he was so tired, he found a little cabinet in the back of the room. And he climbed into the cabinet, and he closed the door, and he went right to sleep. Okay, hang on. It's going to happen now. Well, real late at night, after midnight, he heard something loud. It went, "Meow! Meow! Wow! Meow! Wow! Meow!" And suddenly things started breaking. And it sounded like 10 tigers was fighting out there. Things were smashing and falling on the walls. Meow! Wow! Meow! And he heard something smashing and scratching around. And suddenly he heard something big hit the floor hard. Sounded like an elephant. And it got kind of quiet. And he could feel something coming towards him in the cabinet. And he felt something come up to the cabinet, went, and kind of sniffed at it. And then it went away. Well, you ain't going to sleep through that. In the morning, he heard the birds singing. And he opened the cabinet up a little bit, and he could see daylight coming through. And he opened the cabinet, and he went out. Yeah, it was the monster. The monster was there. And it was a huge, gigantic rat. A rat. And it was a giant dead rat, which is the best kind. It was a big, giant dead rat, and it was ate up, and it was tore up. And there's little pieces of fur and blood everywhere, and it was dead. And he looked up at the walls where he'd drawn all of his cats, his cat friends, and the pictures were there. Nobody washed them or burned them or anything, and they looked kind of different. The big cat was licking its paws. And the cat next to that was washing its face. And all the cats were looking at him. And he felt good. And he walked out into the street and decided to walk home. And people started to hear about what happened, and they came out to give him food and to talk to him. That was the magic boy who killed monsters with his magic pictures. Seshu went home, and people started coming over and gave his father money so that he would draw their pictures for good luck. And his name was Seshu. You can look him up. He was a real guy. He was the greatest artist that Japan history. He wasn't good at farming. He wasn't good at blacksmith. He wasn't even real good at writing stuff. But he was real good at drawing stuff. So if there's something you really love to do and you're good at it, don't let anybody ever tell you that it's stupid. If you love it, you work hard at it until you become the best. You like drawing? You like drawing cats? Well, you know, if you ever feel scared at night, maybe if you draw a picture of your big cat or something, it'll watch over you, just like Seshu. That's what I got for you. See you later.
Okay. We got to sing the children out today. Okay.
As you go, let joy surround you. As you go, go in peace. Know our love is with you always. As you go, as you go.
So, it is time for our meditation. And we'll start with some words that I've written. Let us take this time to quiet our minds and our bodies. Get comfortable, relax, listen to your breathing. Without a vision, we will all dissipate our energies and accomplish little. But that vision must be one worthy of giving our lives to it. So turn inward, open yourself to the vision of the person that you want to be. I'm going to give a somewhat extended period of time for us. We bring these hopes and aspirations of our better selves before that which is beyond ourselves. The love of family and friends, the support and encouragement of this congregation, and the wisdom and quest to which we devote our hearts. That which can be grown out of that which we are can be grown out of who we are, and both are very good. Amen. This is the time when we have one of the great opportunities that we are given. We have the opportunity to support those values that we say that we want to live by. So at this time, if the ushers will come forward, we can share our resources for the aims of this church. We thank you for your generosity. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip the readings. You may have noticed recently that our country is more divided than it has been in a long time, maybe since the Civil War. Some of us have lost friends, been cut off from some family members because of it. Some of you know that the Progressive Religious Coalition has been running a series of quarterly panel discussions in which we're trying to find common ground, common ideas upon which both sides can agree, and we can use that as a basis for trying to come together to build a future that we all are looking forward to. Next one's October the 26th. When I asked to give this sermon, I thought that I would take that idea of going from I to we and give my take on what it might involve, and share my ideas with you all. But I made a mistake. I ran across another book that had a title that looked like it might shed some light on the topic, and so I consulted it, and boy, did it change my perspective. I suddenly had a much broader understanding of how we got to where we are. A couple of months ago, I was talking with a friend about the PRC's program of trying to find common ground. And she said that she wasn't interested in working with people who she thought had demonstrated the desire to destroy our democracy. Do we just leave it at that? Do we just try to destroy the other side? Why not? We know that ours is the viewpoint of inclusion and equity for everybody. Well, at least 4 of our principles say we can't do that. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, acceptance of one another, the right of conscience, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Never promised that being a UU would be easy, but how do we start finding that common ground? How do we start the process? The United States is unique in that it is a country that is held together by ideas, not by religion or our history or our ethnicity. It was expressed by our founders in our 2 great founding documents, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Most of you are aware that these were ideas that came out of what's called the Enlightenment. A bunch of brilliant men in the 17th century, first half of the 18th century, who were thinking about, talking about, writing about a whole range of topics basic to the meaning of life, who we are as human beings, happiness, etc. I want to focus on their ideas about politics, but it was these men and the ideas that they brought forth that in fact gave the name to that time period of the Enlightenment. So they were wrestling with questions like, who gets a voice in civic affairs, and are all voices equally weighted? As a society, how do we determine the allocation of scarce resources? How do we evaluate the contributions of the citizens, and how do we distribute the commensurate rewards for those contributions? And of course, these were also the questions that our founding fathers were trying to address in the Declaration and in the Constitution. We're still debating those questions today. The problem that the founders faced was elucidated by Radwell and Israel in their book, American Schism. This is the book that caused me so much trouble. They identified that there are 2 different strains of thought by Enlightenment thinkers about the answers to these questions. And the different founders took different ones of these 2 strains. Using Radwell's and Israel's terminology, the moderate Enlightenment thinkers, who I'll just call the moderates for obvious reasons, thought that the educated, successful elites were the only ones with the intelligence and experience to answer those questions about what was needed to be done for the common good. In other words, people like them. They feared mob rule. They thought that the uneducated common people would be easily manipulated by men and by con men and would-be tyrants. Moderates also advocated sustaining the church's role in government because, after all, it was the institution that helped people live in accordance with a system of ethics. Radical Enlightenment thinkers, the radicals, disagreed with both of these. They thought that since the laws affected everyone, everyone should have an opportunity to have a say in those laws by electing people to represent their interests. They believed people were basically moral and generally responsible. They only needed some education to sharpen these and develop their potential. Radicals also saw religion as another form of potential tyranny. Their experience with the Catholic Church and with the Protestant denominations that had arisen showed that when the church was allied with government, that too often it became a source of tyranny, suppressing people's liberties and keeping the church in power. Both moderates and radicals agreed that there was objective truth and it was possible to find that, discover it, by the techniques of science. For the moderates, they thought that scientific discovery was simply showing the beauty of God's work. And the counter-enlightenment, the rejectors, largely religious leaders and royalty, rejected both of these ideas. Their influence waxed and waned over the years, depending largely on whether the moderates were using the rejectors to bolster whatever position they were dealing with at the time. Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson were radicals. Adams, Hamilton, and Madison were moderates. We forget the importance of Thomas Paine to the Revolution, and that actually didn't take very long after the Revolution for that to happen. But his pamphlet, Common Sense, that was published in 1776, was the first one that laid out a vision of what a government based on these principles would look like and what a society based on those principles would look like. It was what gave the common people an idea that was worth fighting for. It was more important in bringing the common people into the revolution than any other act or speech or event or whatever. The Declaration was Jefferson's magnificent summary of radical Enlightenment thought and also how it supported the break with England. But only 13 years later, the Constitution was written by the moderates. The Senate and the Electoral College were both appointed by the state legislators because they didn't trust the mob to do that. The radicals were able to insert the Bill of Rights, which largely protected individuals from overreach of the government, and particularly importantly, established the separation of church and state. And of course, the resistors pushed for the inclusion of religion in government. As I said, the moderates tended to look with sympathy on the religious involvement and have sometimes used religious fervor to strengthen their position. And the first time didn't take long. The election in 1796, the Federalists made use of the religious fervor from the Second Great Awakening to paint the radicals, and particularly Jefferson, as atheists who couldn't be trusted. Still happens. Only a few years after that, John Quincy Adams and some of the other moderates of the time created a revisionist history of the founding. They insisted that the revolution essence was the binding of liberty with Bible-based Christianity, and thereby created a new religious mythology of the revolution. Suddenly, the revolution seemed to assume a divinely inspired religious aspect, but one that didn't jibe at all with what originally happened on the ground. So no wonder we're divided. Both sides claim their authority from founding documents that reinforce the division. Each side has gained ascendancy at various times. All of the expansions of voting rights and increased inclusion of the common people were in times of radical control. Education of the public, the limits to the power of big business were the doings of the radicals. Increasing the power of the presidency and the Senate, including the filibuster, were efforts to limit immigration, deregulation of almost everything, and limitations on voting were all moderate initiatives. But it's well to remember that most people and most politicians aren't at the extremes. Most of us are in the middle. Moderates recognize that clean water and clean air are good things, and that the presidency must have its limits. Radicals know that the executive branch must have enough power to organize things and to accomplish the goals that they set. And they know that we can't take in every person in the world who wants to immigrate to this country. But where we get into trouble is the my way or the highway attitude of leaders on both sides, although currently the moderates seem to be a little more insistent on that. Compromise is the lifeblood of democracy. Extreme tribalism is its death knell. And that's important enough, I'm going to repeat it. Compromise is the lifeblood of democracy. Extreme tribalism is its death knell. So we're in a polarized mess that's even more complex than we originally thought. So is there any way out of the predicament? Well, no, I'm sorry, there really isn't. So, well, maybe there is a place to start. After all, the title of my talk is Finding Common Ground. And one place to start is our first principle. Every person has inherent worth and dignity. If that's true, then every person deserves to be heard, to be listened to be really understood. You don't have to agree with them, but you must honor their dignity by recognizing, by trying to understand them and see where they're coming from. Most political analysts, in fact, agree that perhaps the major driving force behind the populist uprising is that a huge section of the populace believes that their voices and their concerns are not being heard. They think that the liberals look down on them as ignorant rubes, even despicables. They think that the conservatives are in the pockets of the wealthy and the corporations. And unfortunately, they're probably right on both of those. Too often when we're talking with somebody on the other side, we're just waiting for our turn to state our ideas that will certainly bring the other person around to our way of seeing things. But if we listen to the other person, if we really listen to them, we might realize they're coming from a moral sound grounding that we can even recognize as moral. It might even be one with which we can agree. Another reason for hope comes from a book by Jonathan Haidt called The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. Haidt's a social psychologist who studied the moral foundations on which people in cultures across the world base their decisions. He has identified 6 of those moral groundings: care versus harm, liberty versus oppression, fairness versus cheating, loyalty versus betrayal, authority versus subversion, and sanctity versus degradation. Now, realizing you probably can't repeat those back to me right now, let me repeat them one more time. Fairness, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. So let's briefly explore what Haidt meant by these. Most normal people have an inborn tendency to care for other people, to help other people, or even animals when they encounter someone in trouble. It's thought to originate in the need to care for babies and children, but it spreads out to at least those in our tribe. You even see it in toddlers in the nursery when some other baby is seemingly in trouble. Another toddler will often go up and give them a hug. In the context of our discussion, it manifests in policies that provide safety nets for those in need. Liberty involves setting as few limits on an individual's rights to choose what he or she thinks is best for them, whether or not it contributes to the common good. And the U.S. is by far the most protective of those individual rights of any country. Fairness concerns the person being treated equally before the law, but also that they should receive equal pay and benefits and approbation commensurate with their efforts and contributions. Authority recognizes that to accomplish almost any goal requires someone with the authority to organize the efforts, acquire the needed resources, and keep people working towards the goal. Sanctity recognizes that some things are particularly special, so special for some people that they think that they are sacred. That may include certain spaces, symbols, relationships, person's body, even their beliefs. The problem, according to Haidt, is that while conservatives tend to use all 6 of these moral foundations, liberals use only 2, the fairness and liberty options. I disagree with Haidt a little bit. I think liberals really do use the caring module a lot. But what that means is that when we see conservatives taking stands that seem to us to not make any sense, that maybe even against their own best interest, that we need to take time to look a little bit deeper and see if they aren't in fact operating from one of these moral foundations that we don't normally think about. Think about that. Conservatives may be acting as morally as you are even when you think they're dead wrong. When we're talking with conservatives, posting on social media, or helping craft a political campaign, we must broaden our viewpoint and actively look for that common ground. Loyalty can be one of those areas of common ground. If you belong to an organization or a country, you should support the organization's goal or resign. Wearing a flag pin or displaying the flag outside your home or a patriotic bumper sticker are ways of saying that we too love our country. Several people in this room and several people listening online have put their lives on the line, honoring the love of country. Yes, would-be tyrants will adopt these sacred ideas and try to manipulate them to their own advantage, but that just simply illustrates how important they are. Having said that, wearing a flag pin doesn't mean that we think our country is perfect. We also show our love of country or church or whatever when we try to correct its flaws, to try to make it live up to its principles. Assuming it's a free and fair election, when we elect somebody to office, whether it's the class president, the chair of the Rotary Club, or president of the United States, we should all agree that we really do need to follow the rules they establish to accomplish necessary goals. We should give our leaders a benefit of the doubt because recognizing that they probably do have more information than we do. The perception of illegitimacy can destroy a democracy. It's why Russia tried to create doubts in our elections. We all know what's going on with the big lie now about the Republicans. I think it's the greatest danger to our democracy that we're facing. Unfortunately, 2/3 of the current Republican Party and about 1/3 of the entire electorate have abandoned the idea of objective truth. Since that's the basic tenet of the Enlightenment that both sides agree with, we must assume that they've rejected the Enlightenment and embraced the counter-revolution, the counter-Enlightenment. The fact that there are more of these in the South than in other parts of the country is not really surprising, because the Southern leaders had to reject the Enlightenment from the beginning because it was incompatible with keeping slaves. I frankly don't know how to deal with this group. But remember, both moderates and radicals agree that there is objective truth that can be discovered by science. We must fight unreason with reason. It may seem to be futile now, but it's all we have. And keep in mind that the rejectors are in the minority. There's a widespread agreement on matters of principle, such as rejecting racism, discrimination, taking responsibility for the vulnerable and those fleeing conflicts. And also remember that one of the most reliable remedies to heal our political divisions is person-to-person contact. And let me leave you with a radical thought, that those with whom we disagree are not our opponents, but are human beings who deserve our respect and even our love. Namaste. Our closing hymn is number 360, With Heart and Mind. $300, I'm sorry. Yeah.
With heart and mind and voice and hand, may we this time and place transcend, to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat impedes, where mortal light of conscience leads. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love the spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door so we could be all who
path is never clear, and the stakes are high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You're not alone. Go in peace, dwell in love, and walk in beauty until we meet again. And now we'll sing Spirit of Life, or hum it at least. I always forget to do that. Thank you.
That's why I'm here. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow, winter wind, life in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.